5 years, South Africans head to the polls to cast their votes. But how much changes within that 5-year cycle? A lack of basic services remains a persistent complaint, whether it's election season or not. And in the last aftermath of the KwaZulu-Natal floods, last week's aftermath rather, we've seen what many claim are local government failures. Let's discuss some of this with governance expert Dr. Harlan Cloete from Bloemfontein. Dr. Cloete, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. I mean, as we are grappling and coming to grips rather with the aftermath of the floods, and we see the scale and the extent of the damage and the devastation by the floods, we're also seeing how some facilities are lacking. I've interviewed a number of different people since last week on this show, and some of them are pointing to a lack of proper advanced early warning systems that were not in place in eThekwini, for example. Others are pointing out to the mushrooming of informal settlements and the building of informal settlements on unsafe grounds near rivers, and that is a lack of proper municipal governance. What are your views broadly, Dr. Cloete?
Good afternoon, Dan, and good afternoon to your viewers. You know, local government have been in trouble for the last decade or so, and report after report shows exactly that there's a lack of planning, there's a lack of infrastructure, we've got aging infrastructure. And so, yes, I would agree with most observers that we have a problem. You know, if you look at the events in KwaZulu-Natal last week, I think some of that could have been avoided, but it was an act of God. You know that you can predict it, flooding and climate change, but it also shows that local government will have to step up in terms of being more preventative instead of being reactive.
So how do you do that in a situation where you've got so many other service delivery challenges? I'm asking this because when there's no storm, we tend to put climate change as an example on the back burner.
You know, one official once says, how do you plan for something that you're not sure is going to happen? And it's more difficult to be proactive than it is to be reactive. Now, there are various competing interest and various competing demands placed on local government. But you know, the one thing that this shows is that that one sphere of government cannot do it alone. Hence, we've got cooperative governance, where the three spheres of local government, in a better coordinated way, will have to plan better. You will remember that about 2 years ago, the Cabinet announced the district development model as the preferred model to ensure better delivery and better coordination of services. And I think the district development brings all these spheres of government together. Because you see, let's just take housing, for example. Housing is not a local government competence. It's a national and provincial government competence. And so local government governance through the district development model provides a framework for better coordination in what government calls the one plan.
The one plan is talked to integrated approach, as you say, and it's been 2 years in the making. But these storms, just as an example, the floods in KwaZulu-Natal are showing that we don't have really local government, or government does not have enough time to try and proactively build a more sustainable setup at the local level.
But you see, that is exactly what they need to do, because, you know, in a municipality that I'm aware of here in the Western Cape, we've got housing right next to the railway line. Now, that is a disaster waiting to happen. And now that's what I'm saying. We don't have a track record of being proactive. And so, through the district development plan, for example, government will have to plan better. If you look at all municipalities, not most, all municipalities through legislation must develop every 5 years an integrated development plan called an IDP, where they go at the two communities, they look at what are the needs. In consultation with that communities, they then draft a 5-year plan. And so if there's any lessons to be learned from what has happened in KZN over the past week, is that we need to make sure that we plan better, coordinate better, and these different spheres of government working together, because the IDP identifies what are the needs, what are the growth trajectories in a community, and what resources is needed to ensure better services to local people. Because it's not national government that delivers. It's delivery or services is felt at the local government level first. And so people look to local government for answers. And so the IDP gets these spheres of government to work together to ensure better delivery of services.
You know, as I'm listening to you with that IDP, I'm thinking of the NDP, and it's 8 years away from 2030, and it hasn't hit any of the targets. We seem to have these good plans, models, policies in place, but we just lack the implementation, the edge, that edge for implementation. There's rapid urbanization. We've known about that. More and more people are migrating from rural South Africa to urban areas, but at the same time, we have lack of adequate housing, and land reform is slow. So your safe land spaces in urban areas are highly contested, and there's few of them. And then people find themselves forced to build settlements where it's unsafe.
Now, I agree with you fully. Our problem, Justice Malala once said, we have got a lack of implementation. And you see, that is the problem with most governments. They struggle to put their plans into action. And so implementation is at the heart of it. If you put into local government politics, factionalism, then that makes it even more difficult, because those policymakers that are supposed to be designing the future get involved with factional fights. And that's what we've seen in local government. If you look at the Zondo Commission, one of the conclusions is that politics and politicking have been at the heartbeat, at the center of corruption. And so implementation, I agree with you, is the problem. And we need to be able to work better with communities to find what we call developmental local government, working with communities to find sustainable solutions to the problems faced by communities. But you're right, ethical and accountable leadership and implementation. Those are the keys to make sure that we get out of this mess that we find ourselves in.
Dr. Harlan Cloete, governance expert, thank you very much for your time and insights this Easter Monday afternoon here on Today on ENCA.